Hello, friends and listeners from all across the globe. Thank you so much for tuning back into another episode of The Yogi Show. Here we are, my friends, on episode number 6. Yogi Bryan and I sat down and had an incredible conversation with an internationally celebrated yoga teacher who's best known for her accessibility to humor and ability to empower students and humans throughout the globe with her message, Aim True. You guessed it, my friends, Kathryn Budig. Kathryn is one of the sweetest humans I've ever had the pleasure of connecting with. She is so down to earth, real, raw, and honestly just funny as hell. We had a blast chatting with her about yoga, humor, and leading experiences around the world. In this episode, she shared so much knowledge and information with all of us about just getting started, showing up, reigniting your fire, and being authentically you. If you're a new or aspiring yoga teacher, grab a notepad. She shares some great tips for you. I felt like a sponge just trying to soak it all up as we were chatting. We are so grateful she was willing to share her time with us, and now you. So get your popcorn ready, my friends, because it's showtime. Thank you so much, Kathryn Budig. Welcome to The Yogi Show. Thank you for taking the time again.
It is a pleasure to finally be here.
to finally be here. So, Brian, how is everything working out for you this morning, though?
Everything is working great, Kathryn. Thanks so much for coming on. I actually woke up 2 hours earlier, and my mouse on my iMac was not working. I'm like, great. It was not working.
I thought you were going to say it was like Christmas morning for you, and you were so excited.
Oh, super excited. Super excited. That's why I woke up 2 hours early. Got everything ready. Everything is smooth sailing.
Yeah. So just for some context, listeners, so we tried to do this conversation a week ago, and nothing worked right. Nothing was working on a technical side for Brian. So Kathryn was kind enough to reschedule with us and make this happen. So we can't thank her enough for being here and sharing her insight on yoga, humor, gratitude, mindfulness. And like Kathryn, you're like the queen of the yoga humor, like way before Brian and I were like even doing yoga. Like you were already funny in the yoga room. You were already funny doing that. So that's the first thing I want to hit on. Like when I started looking at like all the things that, places you had taught, people you had talked to, classes you had taught, it was like, Kathryn is funny as shit. Like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, that's a big compliment coming from you. It's not something that I flex or like practice jokes at home. I'm definitely one of those, my brain just says the first thing that enters it when I think about something, which is often bizarre and evidently funny at times. I don't know. I guess this is another weird confession, but I take my own classes at home on Yoga Glow, and I will regularly just bury my face in my hands when I'm taking my own class at the things that come out of my mouth. And sometimes my wife will join me, and I look at her just begrudgingly, like, "Is it funny? Oh, is that annoying? I don't know." But it is what it is.
Right, just doing you, just being yourself.
It's not going to change anytime soon, that's for sure.
No way, no how. It's funny.
And your podcast is hilarious. I was I listened to the latest episode, and the word persnickety was coming up, and I was laughing at that.
It's a good word. It's a highly underused word. We need to bring it back. And yes, Twitter-pated, persnickety and Twitter-pated. Anything that makes your mouth like bubble when it speaks, it has to bounce. Your lips have to bounce a lot when you say the word.
Right, and it gets you thinking too. You're like, persnickety, like what is that? And it's great use of word. Twitter-pated, great use of word.
Hold on. What the hell is Twitter-pated?
Twitter. Have you never seen Bambi?
No, apparently not.
Oh my God. Okay. Twitter-pated was not originated in Bambi, but that's definitely the first time I ever heard it. Twitter-pated is when you were smitten. Like I'm Twitter-pated with someone, so that it actually sounds. It feels like what it sounds like, this like your heart is fluttering, you're Twitter-pated, it has nothing to do with the app or the social media site. It's this old, beautiful world for like excited and smitten.
Got it. Because at first I had to is this a Twitter? Like, is there something I missed on Twitter? Like what?
Hashtag no.
Hashtag hard no. Funny thing you said about Yoga Glow in the beginning. I was on Facebook this morning, and I was just scrolling for whatever, and I got targeted for a sponsored post for
Oh.
Kathryn Budig on Yoga Glow.
Oh.
And I was like, what? What? This is the universe?
Hi, here I am posing for the camera.
That's amazing, you know? So how did your journey, so how did it start? Like, you're in LA, you're doing yoga, it works out. Like, did you know you were going to be a teacher when you walked in the yoga room? Like, how did this all start for you?
Well, I started yoga in college when I was at the University of Virginia, and I was doing a ton of musical theater. I was an English and drama major, and one of my ballet dance friends came back after a summer of doing ballet and yoga, and she loved it, and she found a studio, and she's like, you got to go. So I started taking classes with her off campus, and it became an addiction. You know, I didn't really understand what yoga was. I didn't realize that there were different styles of yoga or anything about the background. It was just something that I went to every Friday, and I loved it. And you know, it's such a testimonial for the power of yoga because I felt better. And I was a college student. So it's like I was partying really hard and having a great time, but simultaneously stressed and trying to, you know, read a bajillion books a night and hand in papers on time and all that good stuff. And it turns out I was taking Ashtanga, and I didn't even know that Ashtanga was a thing. I have a very distinct memory of eating dumplings with my friend Moira and her explaining to me that there are these things called series of poses that you do, primary series. I'm like, huh, what? Okay, more dumplings.
Immediately.
Yeah. And so I was just, it was a beautiful entry. And I'm sure the way most people find yoga, where, you know, there's no agenda. It wasn't like I was trying to become a teacher or garner anything beyond just the immediate benefits of the practice. So when I graduated from Virginia, I wanted to try the whole acting career thing. And it was honest, you know, it's New York or LA pretty much. And
Right.
I was from the East Coast. So I decided to test out the West Coast, and I moved to Los Angeles. And my teacher at the time, Jennifer Elliott, told me that I had to go to Yoga Works and I had to practice with Maddy Israedi. And I did not know what any of that meant at all, but I found the studio, and it just so happened that Chuck Miller and Maddy, the co-founders of Yoga Works, were about to lead a 200-hour training there. And I applied, and I was admitted, and I started the training like a couple days after I landed in LA. So I had no idea that I was throwing myself into like the Vitamix of blunders, you know, like I just had no clue where I had landed. And I wanted to give up after the first night because Chuck Miller was doing philosophy on Friday night. And Chuck is just, I mean, he's iconic. He is intimidating and a teddy bear all at the same time, but he was speaking primarily in Sanskrit the entire night. And I mean, I knew nothing, you know, I mean, I'd done all these poses, I've been doing Ashtanga, but I didn't know. I was a college kid. And I was just like, oh God, I can't, I'm in over my head. And then Maddy taught asana the next day, which again was the hardest thing I had ever done in my entire life.
No doubt.
Oh, and you know, people like all the assistants were on me like white on rice. And I just was like, everything I'm doing is wrong. But
I know.
I left that day feeling high as a kite and stuck with it and graduated from Yoga Works and with Chuck and Maddy, being the firecracker that she was, saw something in me. And she's like, you're going on the schedule as a teacher, as a student teacher. And I basically wet my pants and nodded because you don't say no. And that was the beginning of this wild journey of mine.
How cool. How cool is that story about? So how many classes had you taken like before you like enrolled in the training? Like how many, a handful?
Oh, no. I mean, okay. So my first yoga classes were at the Aquatic Fitness Center at UVA, where, you know, they had a fitness room where you could do like kickboxing or yoga. And so that was my first experience with yoga. And my big takeaway was that the mat was slippery and I couldn't hold anything because my hands would slide all over. And I decided my palms were too sweaty to do yoga. So I started, like, you know how gymnasts bring like chalk with them when they're doing all their stuff? I would like put deodorant on my hands and try to, it was really embarrassing, but I persevered. But no, I think it was my third year of college where I found the Ashtanga studio in downtown Charlottesville, and I went religiously every Friday. And then once I started to scrape more money together, I would go every Friday and then try to go on a Tuesday, see if I could go 2 times a week, just because it's expensive, when you're a college kid.
Yeah.
That's a lot of dough to be throwing down. So I had a solid 2 casual years of yoga under my belt before I started the training, but still, casual yoga student style practice. And that was 2003 or something like that. So yeah, I had no idea what I was getting myself into at all. Not even a clue. Not even.
Especially going there to Yoga Works and, just intimidation and Sanskrit and just like thrown in the mix.
Yeah. I mean, the heartbeat of yoga in America, truly. I mean,
for sure.
I had no idea. And I'm so lucky, obviously, that I accidentally fell into that. Just because Yoga Works, to this day, I still think is one of the finest studios, especially the Santa Monica studios out there. I try to take a class. I don't even care who's teaching. I just know it's going to be beautiful and fantastic and solid. And I am spoiled rotten by that studio, and I miss them horribly. I miss them horribly.
That's so cool. That's so cool that we've been to LA a few times. Actually, Brian and I originally met for the first time ever when we were in Santa Monica in LA. We were trying to go to, remember that, Brian? We were in the hotel. We were trying to go to Yoga Works, but like it didn't work out. It didn't work out for the timing. So we went to hike we went hiking somewhere instead, and it worked out well.
Yeah.
But
we got lots of good hikes.
It was so great. Just I like the vibe out there, but I could see where like being there for extended periods of time could be taxing. And there's so much energy, so many people, so much happening all the time.
Yeah. I'm glad I was as young as I was when I lived there, because I think that is definitely the time to do it. And I lived in Los Angeles for 8 years, which was just short enough to not completely obliterate my soul. So I got out right in time, and I've been recouping ever since.
That's too.
That was 2003 when you were there. That was before social media.
Well, 2003 was when I started my yoga practice. I moved there in 2004. Oh yeah, this is definitely pre-social media. I remember. I don't remember what the actual date. But I do remember someone. Do you remember Friendster? Actually.
No.
How embarrassing.
Vaguely,
do you remember?
Did you just
I'm dating myself.
Just date yourself?
Yep. Yeah, I did. Friendster, Napster. Do you guys remember Napster?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I remember that.
Metallica kiss.
But my friend Jessie Shine, who is a phenomenal yoga teacher, she taught at Yoga Works for a really long time. She was the one who's like, we're going to get Facebook accounts and we are going to see who can get the most friends. It was just a total BS competitive, not like the competition that you actually see today. It was like just acquire friends, not likes. And then I realized like, oh, there's quote business pages, and I can use this to promote my classes. And that it also kind of came into the same era when I started hitting the road and working on the circuit, doing workshops and conferences and stuff like that. So I guess it was serendipitous, because it certainly was a great way to get the message out there. But, the monster that is social media had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Right. Did you have a MySpace?
Yes, absolutely. And I was very persnickety. There it is, about the order of my friends, my top 6. Hello.
That was important.
Hello.
Those top 6, top 8s, and if you took someone off your top 8, is done. You're
like when you would have a breakup and they would magically disappear off of your top 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye. I remember those in the surveys. How about those surveys, though?
It's so crazy.
Love me a good MySpace survey.
Oh, the good old days.
Seriously, and that was, it's interesting you said that about, doing the yoga and like, getting on your path, pre-social media stuff before, then you started to realize like I can promote my stuff
Yeah.
on this platform. Like this can actually help me to get more students. Do you think you were getting at that time, like more students and people to your gigs? And like, what was that transition? Like, so that's kind of a two-part question. Like, did that help? And like, what was that transition from like, I'm teaching classes at Yoga Works to now people are like reaching out to me to like come to like special events? Like, how was that?
I don't feel like
how did that
social
go?
media affected my Los Angeles classes, my Yoga Works classes. And I think any yoga teacher who works at a studio can relate to this. The numbers game, like who knows what that is?
Mhm.
Right.
If you don't have
Right.
a prime time slot, and I ended up loving it. But I mean, I taught all the early classes. I taught the 7 a.m.s and the 7:15s at Main Street in Montana. And I had one prime slot on a Sunday at like 10:45 a.m. and then one 6 p.m. And those were like, the money spots. But the 7 a.m. and 7:15,
Yep.
I sometimes would have 12 people. I would sometimes have 45, but it was just, it wasn't a matter of how good your sequencing was or what you were offering. And, I really want to remind teachers listening to this, because I know they get so hung up on numbers. You cannot, in the same way that you can't get hung up on likes, you can't get hung up because there's like weird algorithm stuff going on. And you have to post what is important to you and what you want to say. You have to teach what is true to you in your class. It's just, you always have to drown out the sound that's going on around you, and every day, return to yourself and the message that you truly want to offer. So I know that really wasn't your question.
No, that was so good.
But
no, but that was great. That was great.
But yeah,
it was so good.
I do think it helped. I think that this was oversaturation for kind of people traveling with workshops. There really wasn't a ton of us at the time when I was doing this. So I had that on my side, was that, there were the senior teachers like the Sean Corns and the Shiva Rays and the OGs, like all these people who were already out there on the circuit. And then for my generation, there's Tiffany Cruikshank, Brock and Krista Cahill, like they're, Dice Alda Klein, people who were there weren't a lot of us yet. And so maybe it wasn't as difficult to fill a space, just because it was still this kind of special thing to get to go take a workshop. And then obviously, I was really blessed to have great press. I had been on the cover of Yoga Journal magazine, and I wrote for them, and then I became the yoga editor at Women's Health magazine, and
Boom.
all the glossy bullshit that people look at and then immediately think that you're viable just because you've been on the cover of a magazine. That must mean you're a good teacher, which is the facts. They're like not correlated at all. But people like to see, it makes you legitimate. Oh, you're in media. That must mean you're legitimate. And now you have big social media numbers. That must mean you know what you're talking about. So it helped, and it will always help. It's the nature of the beast. It isn't truth, but it is when it comes to getting people into a room.
I agree with that. And I know Brian can relate for sure on like likes and numbers. It's not everything. You know what I mean? It's just not.
No, it's the easiest thing to convince yourself that it is everything. And yet it is the most superficial, this too shall pass moment in time that people waste an enormous amount of energy and effort and thought process in, when it's not real. It is like the post that you're upset about right now. And I guess the newest thing, I don't know if it's new. I mean, I'm clearly old because you guys don't know what Friendster is. But the thing that I hear what the kids are doing these days is that if a post goes up and it doesn't get enough traction or likes, that people are taking it down.
Yep.
Which is crazy, because it's just like, are you putting things up because you want the world to see you as a popular entity, or are you putting things up because you have something to say? And, I'm not saying that it's not cool to put up a fluffy post or like a selfie and just saying something like, hi. I mean, whatever, you do you, but it's just, are you sharing things because it's important? And it's just going to show that it's all fluff. Like are you waking up and getting on your Instagram because, wow, I have this really important message I want to share? Or, oh, it's a Monday, I need to post something and I need to tell the people that I still exist. which turns out you do
Right?
exist, and
Yeah.
you don't have to exist on the superficial media outlet to prove that to people. You have a real life with real friends and family members and people and students. Like, that's really where we need to shift our energy to.
That's so true. And I hear in Australia they took off like the
Hmm.
likes off Instagram, and that's interesting.
Yeah, that's genius. I mean, I know people are having full blown panic attacks over it, but it,
I need my pills.
no. My happy pills, my happy likes. I can't. Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, I would be interested to hear what it. Actually, Pedro and Brian, question for you: since the amazing business that you do really evolves and lives on a social media platform, how I know how I'm affected and how people are affected, but do you live by the like? I mean, what
By the like and the
you live
comment,
by the like? Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I know what that.
engagement.
I know it's a hard thing to have, to kind of balance with. It's like, when I first started doing this platform, making memes on the internet, it was like, I wanted all the admiration. I wanted all the likes.
Mhm.
I was like, if 5,000 people are following me, why am I not getting 5,000 likes plus all the hashtag people? Like, why is that not happening? But that's not reality. And that was, 4 years ago now. I'm coming up on the anniversary of Yogi Memes. So 4 years of making memes on the internet consistently. And it's just like, it's not real, like people
Yeah.
have, it's, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's been on the internet, and someone's going to see it for 0.08 seconds maybe. And then they're just going to be like, okay, that was cool. Like, that was funny. And then they're going to move on. For most people, there are some people that really are going to engage with it, are really going to, it's going to shift something in them. Like, I know that by making the memes on the internet, like, people have connected and found yoga because of somebody sent the invitation, like, hey, this is funny and it's light, it's not so serious, just like, trust me, like, here's a funny joke about it, just come fucking try it with me and just try it out. And someone out there for sure, tons of people are doing yoga because of the memes, and I believe that in my heart. But it's not about like the likes and the comments and all that stuff. Now it's not about that. It's just about, I'm putting out content that feels good for me, and then all the other stuff is just happening on top of that. And I'm sure, Brian, you can probably say the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a balance, and it's really been something like I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Like,
Ooh, same.
I love that I can connect with people, and like Pedro, I was able to meet Pedro, and like, he's like my BFF. Like, we're on a podcast now talking to everyone, and
talking to Kathryn Budig.
Yeah. Kathryn Budig on here. Yeah. Like, how is that even possible? Right.
How?
So like, I love social media that way, but in growing, an Instagram too. I mean, there's like tactics and there's things to grow your Instagram. And then you realize, like, when I first started my Instagram was back in 2016. And I solely just wanted to make fun of yoga. I didn't have a yoga practice at the time. Like, I just solely wanted to make fun of yoga.
No
Yeah.
way,
I
really?
didn't even, wasn't a yoga teacher. Like, I just wanted to make fun of yoga. And then just with making fun of yoga, I grew my practice, and then I wanted to teach, and like, now it's changed my life. So kind of crazy that way. So I love social media for that. But then, yeah, it gets to the likes, especially making memes and content. It's like, you want your meme to do well, and when your
Yeah.
meme does well, that's likes and comments. So it gets on the discovery page, and then it's shared. So
Mhm.
it is that, coming back to what you said, is this my true authentic self? Do I want to share this? Like, is this funny to me, or is this has some truths out there to me? And really not looking at the likes, because I can't get caught up with how many likes it gets or how much, maybe negative comments it gets. Like, I have to
Do you
kind of
get lots of
balance
negative
myself.
comments? Like, do people get their
Sometimes.
panties in a bunch saying yoga is sacred and that you shouldn't make fun of it kind of stuff?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
we get that. We call them, like, we make Karen memes and Carl memes. So Karen is the, the student that's always complaining. Maybe it's 88 degrees instead of 87 degrees.
Ew.
But there's the Carl as well. That's the same way.
That's her husband.
Oh. Well, if
Their
it's
son is
any
Ed.
consolation, I am probably the person that you hate, because I am a prolific look at things, appreciate it, maybe even laugh out loud, and I don't comment. I'm not a commenter. Like, I don't even really know what moves me to comment. I appreciate. I'm a double tapper, but even like, sometimes I'll totally love something and not acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And there's 50% of me is like, oh, double tap it because that's really meaningful to that person. And I know we all want our likes. And the other 50% of me is like, don't feed the beast. Just enjoy it. They don't need that. Like, this isn't real. I am enjoying it. I am benefiting from it. And you'll never know. And that's just how it is.
In one of your podcast episodes, you're talking about emojis. And that really made me think about my responses, because I try and respond to, everyone that comments, and normally I don't have time, so I just maybe it's the blushing face emoji. With
I love that one.
Thumbs up or something like that.
I really like the one with the onacle. That's my favorite. The inspector one with the little eyeglass.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. When you said onacle, I was like, persnickety? What does that even mean? Like, what is onacle?
This is a podcast on archaic words. I'm basically from the Victorian era with all of the words that I'm using today.
Yeah, what's a good word for new yoga teachers that's new that they can use in their class?
Well, let me get out my onacle and I'll flip through my thesaurus here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm from 1890, you guys.
No, you're not.
But to continue on the conversation of the emoji, I am a fan of the emoji in the sense that I do feel like I am, a quarter cartoon. I'm like 75% UK and a quarter cartoon. And so I really like being able to express myself through. It's funny, but my problem lies in when people are trying to express true emotion and they hide behind an emoji. That's where I get pissed off, where, someone will die or they'll lose something. And I'm not talking about if you're commenting on a public figure's page and you don't know them. So obviously, how could you possibly put words together that are meaningful when you don't know that person? And of course, a good placeholder is going to be a heart. I think a heart is the most fail-safe response to a situation when you're not exactly sure how to verbalize what you want to say. But if it's something truly horrible is happening and you're using crying emojis, that just to me, that's where I'm like, okay, I'm going to need you to use some words and not because I use the crying emoji when I didn't get a table at the restaurant that I've been dying to go to, not when someone lost their dog. It's just, to me, that is just the emblematic of where our society is going, and that we no longer want to use our words. We no longer have the time to think long enough to be thoughtful, and it's easier to just put a placeholder. And so, again, I'm not anti-emoji. I don't want people getting worried about that. I just, is it a placeholder instead of taking the time to think is where I get upset.
Yeah. I feel that when when someone sends you something and then they say their response and then they send you a separate message like 10 seconds later and it says LOL. And you're like, but you're not, but you didn't really LOL. Like, you meant what you just said. You're just trying to lighten it up via a text message. Like, just say what you mean. Say what you mean and mean what you say.
And like, what are the statistics of a LOL like really happening in someone? Like, no one LOL.
Well, interesting. Well, and my wife always says this is she wrote a book called What Made Maddy Run, and it's about it's nonfiction. It's about a young woman who died by suicide, and she did a lot of research into the college culture and the pressure, and LOL basically means reinterpret this message. Was her interpretation. If someone says LOL, reinterpret what I'm saying. It's not, yes, and sometimes it's pure, sometimes it's funny. But it's like this weird little thing that you can say that can totally negate the entire message 100%. That came before it. Yeah. And you have to reinterpret it.
Yep. So, we're throwing it at the end of like every text, saying a statement and then throwing the LOL just like as your little safety net. Like, this is a safety net, but I threw LOL. Yeah. So, this could.
I like to be perverse, and I write LOL. And I just think I'm so funny when I do that.
Yeah, but it goes back to like sharing your authentic message, sharing what is real. And as taking that, let's take that to yoga teaching, right? So when you're teaching yoga, like you're sharing the authentic message that is coming from your heart, something that you believe in, something that you're actually practicing. And oftentimes, like, Kathryn, I'm sure you've been to hundreds of classes just like I have and Brian has.
Mhm.
You go to all these classes and, when you're a new teacher, right? So this is for the new teachers out there, like you're not going to be the person on the stage at Wanderlust day one. That's not going to happen.
Right.
The new student is not going to be doing a handstand the first time they walk in the class. You have a quote of something like that I saw somewhere, but it really resonated with me. Like, just speak what and say what is coming from your heart and what you're believing and what you're actually practicing, and you can be totally transparent with your students, and you can be totally transparent in any conversation or whatever it is, but that will hold so much more value than you trying to be Deepak Chopra or somebody that, or your teacher or somebody that you're not. Like, you know what I mean? And like, you see that so much, and it's like, share your authentic message, and that'll get you so much further than trying to be somebody else.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with coming in. And if you want to pull, a Rumi quote or something like that, it's one thing if that quote calls to you and is stirring up something that is very current in what you're experiencing. It's another thing if, you're trying to quote from the Vedas or Rumi or something like that, just because you think that's what a yoga teacher is supposed to do. And, and I think that I like a good anecdotal moment in a class. I don't know if I share them that much anymore, just because students aren't coming there for my personal experiences. They're coming for their personal experience.
So true.
And so I don't make the class about me. It's, if I have a little something that happened to me that I think is quick and sweet and to the point and will really drive my message home, I'll share it. But that's something I did a lot as a younger teacher. I was full of all these anecdotal moments, and it makes me, it's kind of sick to my stomach when I think about, like, oh, the breakups that I was going through, and this means that you too will make it to the next day. You'll move on. It's like, oh, how embarrassing. And I thought I was Deepak Chopra being like, this too shall pass. Yeah, take that. Put it in your smoke pipe, whatever. Put it in your vape pen. Put it in an edible form and chew it. So and I'm not saying that I will go back and change it, because that's where I was on my path, and that's what I found inspiring. And I take a lot of younger teachers' classes, and they will drop, quote knowledge where I'm like, oh, that's sweet. But it's them doing their best. And so fuck it. You just need to go in as a teacher, and if it moves you and it makes you emotional, and if it totally is in tune with the apex of your class or whatever theme it is, go for it. But just remember, people are not there for your story, they're there for theirs. And so you need to do what you can to support them on their mat, because this is their practice, not yours. So long story short, drop your ego if possible.
It's so true. Holding space for the students. That was like one of the things that they drilled in me. It's just like, no matter what your day was, as personal, you're the teacher, no matter what your day was or what's going on, like, the students are there for their own practice, and you're just holding space for that. Like, you're not their guru. Like, you're just there holding space, sharing your practice. Yes. But yeah, it's ultimately them. But yeah, I want to get back to the numbers, like class numbers, because as a new teacher, I mean, I'm only 2 years in. That's something where, like, I'm finally getting to the point where, hey, those ebbs and flows, like, some of that stuff's out of my control. Even with influencer status, Instagram, like, that doesn't really affect my numbers in class that much. Like, I might get 1 or 2 people a week that come from seeing Instagram. So yeah, how like, for the new teacher out there, what advice would you tell them about class size and numbers and ebbs and flows?
You have to teach the same class that you would teach for 50 people to 1 person. You cannot adjust your teaching according to how many bodies are in the room. And because then you are directly connected to your ego and not to the seat of a teacher. And the seat of a teacher is to serve and to go in and share your knowledge in hopes that people will leave that room feeling better. I mean, that's really truly our jobs. And like, if you're getting 100%. Caught up in, like, are you the popular teacher? I mean, Maddy used to, I mean, I know it's kind of cliche, but it was so true. She used to always say, do you want to be a popular teacher, or do you want to be a good teacher? And And I mean, she obviously had a very specific point behind it. My snarky response was, I want to be both. And, you know, and I think,
which is on
Same
it.
note.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I think you can be beloved
You
and
can.
be a good teacher, obviously, but it is the practice of yoga is looking at your ego every day and learning how to set it aside in the moments where it needs to be put on the shelf, and then allowing it to live when it needs to flourish. And you know, if you walk in as a teacher and you've had a really bad day and you roll in and you're going to tell this anecdotal story about how bad your day is, like, that is your ego, and that is you putting your crap on a room of people who already have their own crap and may very well have walked in feeling great, and then you walk in like this storm cloud, and they've paid money to be in a room to feel better, you know. And I see that happens with teachers all the time, and it's just it's like, oh, the queen is here, okay, you know. And that is not the point of the practice. Although you know, in LA sometimes people like that drama and they want the teacher to be a queen, so it just depends. But you know, if you're trying to not feed people's neuroses, and ideally yoga is trying to squash a little bit of that, although it's very difficult to do. I mean, the number game, I know. And I mean, we're human. I think that's the other thing that we don't talk about, is that no matter how much work we do, how much meditation we do, how much focus on the self we do, we are human, and we're delicate, and we have very soft, breakable egos, and we want to be loved, and we want proof that we're loved, and we see that through likes or numbers of bodies in a classroom. But some of the best classes I've ever taught are to a smaller group of people, because it's intimate and I can connect with them and I know all of their names, and it's a shared experience instead of a sea of people where it's like herding cats and you can't connect with 200 people no matter how hard you try. I mean, I don't know if people daydream of teaching at one or less to 200 people, but it's not fun.
It's hard.
It's not fun. It's not my ideal format at all.
What's ideal for you in these days? Because you've done it all.
I think 40, like 30 to 40 is actually the sweet spot. And I'm not saying that anything lower is not a sweet spot, but you know, money wise, obviously it's nice to have more people in a room.
Sure.
But if I'm, you know, just taking away the like putting food on the plate aspect of the job and actually connecting to my students, like having that size of a room just feels intimate, and it's still big enough that you can feed off of each other's energy as a student, but it's small enough that you don't feel like you're crammed in like a sardine, and it's personal.
Yeah. I can relate to that totally. I've taught bigger classes, smaller ones, this, that, and the other. And some of them, like purposefully, like I'll book a space to do an event that only fits 15 because I only want like the 15 people that really want to be there.
Yes.
I'll tell them about it, and then that's it, you know, because like I want it to be that experience, you know. I want them to be able to, you know, feel connected to the people that are there, and like we're all showing up for a specific reason, and like I want it to be intimate. And then there's other, like I do these gigs on the beach, and the yoga studio doesn't close at the beach unless it's raining, really. You know, you can put hundreds of people on the beach, so you know, and that's a whole other experience. So that's like a community experience. So it's just like teaching to the energy in the room, and like, you know, bringing the people together for whatever it is that you're like, whatever your offering is, you know, whatever you're trying to do, you know, whatever it is. So, and it's not about that numbers game about chasing people to come to your experience and do all these things. Like there's a quote I saw from you that said, like, for a long time I was looking for happiness from success, and now I'm looking for success from happiness. And I think that can totally relate to, like, I want as many people as I can, because then I'm going to be X, you know, like, what is that? Like, what does that matter? Like, that's total ego. Like that's what that is, you know.
It's absolute ego. And I think depending on how you're raised, I mean, I came from a family where success was of the utmost importance, and I have a very successful father, and he's an amazing man, but he totally derives his worth in the world through what he has given and how he is seen. And I learned that, and it's something that I think part of the reason why I became as successful as I have been was because I hustled so hard, and it was so important to me to, you know, carve out my place in the world. And I'm not saying that I don't care. I mean, God, I would love to say that I don't care at all, and that my ego is disintegrated, and that I just, you know, float around in my Birkenstocks all day long. But you know, I don't care that much anymore. And but I feel like that's very difficult to properly teach to someone who's young and excited and hustling and to stay in theme of my verbiology today, full of piss and vinegar. Because like you need to know what it feels like to work hard. You need to hustle. You need to just work it. But it's so, at least for my personality type, not sustainable for a lifetime. And ultimately, like in that quote that you mentioned, it's just higher levels of success did not bring me happiness. It was just a moving goalpost where I never allowed myself to truly revel in my accomplishment, because my immediate following sentence to an experience like that was, okay, well, what's next? How can I top this?
What's next?
Yeah.
I knew that. I knew you were going to say that. I could feel it. Yeah. Yep. I know that feeling.
And that's not, oh God, that's not living. That's just, and it's topping your own successes and experiences. And I see people all the time that people love and praise, and, oh my God, I want to be like them. But it's just like, I don't think they sleep. I don't know if there's like ever a moment of true enjoyment, because it's just trumping your last accomplishment over and over and over again. So, and that's that like samskara, that's that cycle of just blinded mess of being trapped in that. And that's not where I want to live. I want to have a place of clarity. I want, when I show up in a place, to be fully present and actually be experiencing what's in front of me, instead of physically being present, but always having my mind be somewhere else, grooming myself for the next step.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I totally relate. It just sounds like balance, especially in the yoga industry. It's like you practice yoga and then be a teacher, like just for myself, be a teacher, and then it's balancing, all throughout training and just throughout yoga. It's like no ego,
Right.
Don't have an ego, like reduce the ego. But then you're building a personal brand, and you're like, I'm on social media building a personal brand. So it's like, sometimes I have to check my ego. I'm like, whoa, this is way too much ego. Like I need to get back to, more of the practice. But then it's like, you need some ego just to be
Yes.
yourself and to do well in business. I mean, it's a yoga business when it comes down to it, like for a brand,
Absolutely. And I think some people lean heavily into the fact that it's a brand and a business so much that it becomes a bit unsavory. And then you have the yoga teachers who are terrified of leaning into the branding component, because they don't want to be seen
Yeah.
as opportunistic or capitalistic, for example. And it is a capitalistic society. It is unfortunate that this, basically Eastern practice that, I mean, we could really like get into the roots of like, oh, is it spiritualism, or was it a way to, work out the extra energy of adolescent Indian boys? I mean, there's so many different arguments for origin and where it's coming from, but it is very westernized of us to turn it into an exercise program and turn it into a way to be glossy and be skinny and make money. And so I just think that but on the flip side also, like, it is a business. This is how people make money. And once upon a time, you didn't become a yoga teacher to become famous and or make money. That was certainly not why you became a yoga teacher at all. And it's a fascinating shift that now people become yoga teachers hoping to garner some kind of notoriety. And you can make a good living, but I would dare say that 95% of the yoga teachers out there still are teaching an exorbitant amount of public classes per week just to get enough money to pay their regular bills. It is not a good business when it comes to money.
No, I was going to say it's 80, the 80-20 rule, like 80%. And I was thinking that, I was like, nah, in this industry, like 90-10. And then you're like, Trump me, before I even said anything, like 95. And I was like, yeah, she's probably right. She's right.
I'm like, if I'm actually being honest, a lot of people are making like $19 a class.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. And it's, in many ways, if you're a good teacher, like one of the most powerful things that you can put back into the world. And, if energy is a currency, yoga teachers should be getting paid like Wall Street.
Yeah. Wall Street on a good day, on the green day.
Yeah.
On a clean, good. But so it's hard. So I do
It's
think
super.
people need to own their worth. I think a lot of teachers struggle with that, with feeling like,
Oh,
"Ooh, it's my karmic responsibility to do this for free." And I'm like, "No, fuck that. If you're
no.
gonna show up and you're going to offer what you are good at and your
Right.
talent,
Yeah.
you should be compensated properly."
Absolutely. It's so amazing that you said that because I've been thinking about that. In like dollar amount, like money. You know what I mean? Like how money and money is energy, and like how does that work, and how does that feel
Yeah.
when you're like, my workshop is $30 versus I did a workshop for $111. And
Mhm.
it's like when someone told me to put a workshop out there for 111, I was like, oh my God, like I can't pay 111.
Right.
Like who would pay 100? Who the hell's paying $111 to come to a
Right.
workshop or 250 or what, yoga journal conferences, those things were super
I know.
expensive,
I know.
and like 300, whatever whatever the numbers were. It's like, but the people that are looking for the deeper experiences, the intimate experience, whatever it is, they will find you. Yoga retreats, people will
Yeah.
come as long as you're holding the space. So if your intention is, I want to bring people together for this purpose and I want to serve and I'm going to offer this experience, put the dollar amount that you feel it's worth and
Yeah.
just ask for it. If you don't ask for it, you are never going to get it.
Absolutely.
Ever. Not
And
going
I
to happen.
know it may seem like, and I'm not, obviously there's Seva events like where you offer your time for fundraisers, and we should all be doing that on a regular basis.
Yes.
That is entirely separate.
Yes.
But
Yes.
when teachers, and I don't think they
100%.
realize how much they're hurting the collective when they do this, when teachers,
Mhm.
for like a big festival or something like that, and the festival says something like, hey, we'll have you teach, but we can't pay you, but it's going to be really good exposure.
Mhm.
If you say yes, you are hurting the collective when you do that, because people are working hard to get paid and to get paid what they deserve. And as long as teachers
Yep.
keep doing things for free or just a painfully small amount of money, these big conglomerates know that they can take advantage of us. And they know they don't have to pay us what they're worth, because people will always do it because they want the likes and they want the exposure and they want this and they want the notoriety. And that is not enough. That is not enough. This is a business and we deserve to get paid.
That is gold right
Pure
there. That
gold.
is for everyone listening. That right there is some gold. So replay that.
Yeah. Play it again. Let it sink in that I am worthy of receiving all of the amazingness and the income and the money that comes
Yes.
along with my time. Like that is so important. And so you said like for nonprofit, fundraising, like
Totally
yes,
different.
that's a little
Totally
totally different.
Yes.
So Kathryn, I'm going to shameless plug myself. I run a nonprofit yoga festival in South Florida, and I'm going to send you an email. And if you're around town, I would love to have you come and teach. For that. Shameless plug for Yoga Fest FL in South Florida.
Well
It's a
done.
non-for-profit experience. So Kathryn Budig may or may not be there if she's available. but in all reality, I totally feel that on so many levels. And karma classes, teaching for free, like you don't have the time or energy to do that because you'll burn out so much faster. I know that so many teachers, and I had this experience as well, Kathryn. I'd love to hear, and Brian, you too. I know because Brian, you're almost at the 2-year mark, but that 2-year mark, something happens at this 2-year mark that I've experienced with all the teachers that I've been around and have come through, that they just get like burned out. It's like they started yoga to get to feel good about themselves or to do whatever. They started their yoga practice, then they became a teacher, and then after 2 years of teaching, it's like now I'm just like teaching and not even really doing that much yoga because I got to do all this teaching to be able to pay for this car payment and this food. So it's like like that happens, and I feel like that 2-year mark, teachers just kind of get like just burned out. So what do you do? Kathryn, you go for it. What do you do? Like, and I mean, you've had to have experienced like this teacher burnout. Like, what do you do to get re-inspired and to like show up and
Yeah.
get back out there? Like, what do you do? Like, what is your like wishing well? Like, what are you grabbing from your jewel box to do something like that to get re-inspired?
I find inspiration in non-yogic experiences, actually. I explore all different modalities of movement, be it martial arts or Pilates or, going to like a Tracy Anderson class or something. I don't know. Like, I'll try everything.
Mhm.
And just watching how the body moves in all these different modalities, and then how that's applicable to the traditional asana, and how can I weave a different physical experience in. And then thematically, I read tons of fiction. I listen to tons of podcasts. I listen to philosophers. I listen to lore, like you name it, mythology to philosophy. you can just get these little nuggets, like one sentence. In the same way, if you take a good yoga class, you can walk away with just one sentence that the teacher says that fuels you for, I don't know, I want to say like half a year. And that can be a theme that you are weaving in and out through all your different classes. And if you have a new emotional theme or like esoteric theme, it doesn't matter what the asana is. You can just teach Trikonasana every single day, but teach it differently because the actual emotional approach is different. So I recommend looking for inspiration in the non-obvious places. I don't think you need to take more yoga to be more inspired to do yoga, because I think that further aids in the burnout process. Step away from the yoga books, step away from the yoga classes, and see what else is going on in the world, what's current, what's interesting, and then how can you make that applicable to an age-old practice.
That's great advice right there. And that I kind of relate that to, I was listening to a TED talk on creativity, and they were saying when a musician's in a rut, like when they're burned out, like this famous producer would make that musician play an instrument that they didn't even know. Like, so if they were a guitarist, they would go play the drums, and they would get so frustrated, because they're not an expert at this, and they would get so frustrated to the point where it just has breakthrough of new ideas for their previous instrument. So like how you do non-yoga stuff, it kind of keeps that creativity fresh from what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. And feeling like a beginner again. If you reach a point where you feel accomplished, you don't have that wonder of the beginner mind anymore, because it's easy to go into an autopilot. So put yourself in positions where you simply cannot go into autopilot, because you have to be present, you have to be awake. Otherwise, you're just going to get, walked all over.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you will be. And it's like when you allow yourself to experience new things in new ways, like shift happens and you're just willing, like you can be more present in all the things that you're doing. And as a teacher, like when you first start teaching, like you're going to grow on your path, just like your students are growing, like you're growing, like obviously you're growing as a teacher. And I've been teaching for almost 7 years now, or so. And I started just teaching Bikram yoga. It was Bikram yoga only, and then nothing else. And like I knew 26 postures and 2 breathing exercises. I didn't even know what a chaturanga was. Like, what the fuck is that? And then you learn about these new things and you grow. And as you're teaching, like things change. Like the way you taught Trikonasana, like you were saying Trikonasana, the way you taught that even 6 months ago or 2 years ago, you might be teaching it totally different now. It might be the same. It's the same exact pose, but the emotion that you're giving, the intention that as a teacher you're holding for that pose, and like why we're doing it in this sequence and what we're looking to feel in the body, when that continues to change, like we continue to grow and grow and grow. And I think that that's so key, is that our growth doesn't stop. And as like a yoga teacher, like I want to keep growing and I want to keep learning new dynamics and new things. And like the inspiration has to be there. And if it doesn't come from, wherever it comes from, it's fantastic. As long as it just continue to offer these new things to your students and holding the space for them, they're going to appreciate your growth. And the people that aren't growing with you, like they'll just go find another teacher. It's not you, it's not you, it's not.
Yeah. Don't take it personal. That's the one thing I tell myself is just, students, I can just do what I can do and share my truth. But, if someone doesn't like my style or, I just can't take that personal, because everyone is on their own journey. And if I take it personal, then that's my ego.
Yeah. And you can't please every kind of student. It's impossible, which is why there's so many different styles of yoga, and which is why there's so many different styles of teaching. And your students will find you, plain and simple.
So true. So true. Well, what are you working on in your practice now? Or what are you struggling with your practice right now?
I mean, there isn't a physical project going on in my practice right now. I think what I struggle with the most is staying inspired, because primarily I do home practice these days, and I miss the community of a studio. I've struggled to find a teacher here, and I took a really good class last week with a teacher who taught in the way that I like to be taught. And of course, she only teaches like twice a week at the studio, and it's really annoying. But so I think my struggle is just keeping my discipline alive at home, because anyone who does a home practice knows it's very easy to start a practice and stop whenever you feel like it.
So
true.
so easy. And I feel that in so many levels, Kathryn. I've been doing home practice for my son is almost 2.5 years old now. So since he
Wow.
came into my youngest, so since he kind of came into the world, life has been very different. There's no time to go to the studio, and like there's just not time right now for any of that. So my home practice, and it's easy to fall off the wagon. You know what I mean? Not be
That's
doing it.
so easy.
You know, and not
Yeah.
it's just so easy. So finding good teachers, like you teach online, so you're on Yoga Glow. So I mean that platform, I've never experienced it personally. So what is it like for you? So you said you practice your own classes? I'm assuming you do, right? Which is kind of, I tried to record myself once and then take my own class. I couldn't do it. Nope. I just couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely cringe with the weird things that come out of my mouth, but at least, physically, I know exactly what I'm going to get, and I know I'm going to like it because I wrote the class.
Yeah.
I certainly don't only take my own classes, but
Yeah. I'm not like a narcissist over here.
right, I only take my own practice. No, but the thing about Yoga Glow that's nice is that it's the next step from keeping you from stopping, because I would say the percentages are very low that you're going to walk into an actual studio and leave a class because you don't feel like doing it, right? Once you get into the room, you're committed. It's game on.
I'm there. 90% of the problem is just getting there. Once you're there, like I'm already here. Like
but
I'm
at
already
home, there's distractions. Like, I mean, you have a 2.5-year-old, they might wander into the class, or, I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong or distract you when you're at home. But at least when I turn on a glow, it's actually Glow now, but I still call it Yoga Glow. When you turn on a Glow class, at least, I can be like, okay, I'm going to take this 30-minute class. I'm going to take this 45-minute class. And, there is a teacher on the other side, and I have to trust that they have set up this class in a way that they think is the most beneficial way to receive it. And I need to stick with it. And I've learned also in creating online classes, it's not always how I'm going to teach in a live situation, because I've learned through feedback, if you don't get the class going immediately, people will turn it off. I mean, I almost always start a class, a public class, with meditation, or we sit there and we take a while to adjust the breath. And I very often kind of skip over that on Yoga Glow because people's attention span is already so thin. So you got to get them going. You got to get them hooked, get them into their physical body. And then kind of the stuff that I would normally start a class with, I can sprinkle throughout or towards the end once I know I've got them. So it is a different way of teaching, for sure. Like learning how to keep the attention of a practitioner online.
Just starting at handstand. Like, all right, come to the top of the mat, handstand.
Let's go. Oh man.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I can attest to that though, that feedback as a person that practices classes online at home. If it doesn't start out and we're not moving, I'm at 5:30 in the morning, like I'm gonna fall asleep. Like I'm gonna fall asleep, and I want to move my body. I got things to do. Brian and I went over my whole like 2-hour morning routine, like getting my wife and 3 kids out the door to the bus in different times. I got 3 kids in 3 schools. Like there's a lot happening. And I want to get my shit together before I have to get them, get them moving. So it's like, it's a ritual, So do you have some, so that's my kind of my path. My rituals, like yoga in the morning or running or whatever it is, like early. Are there any rituals that you have early in the morning that get you set, grounded, and then on with your day?
Yeah, our ritual is that we have 2 dogs, and Ashi, my little one, well, she's physically little, she's not little in age. She's my alarm clock. She'll chirp, and when Ashi's ready to go, it's game time. So we go downstairs. We have coffee rituals. We have a big fancy espresso machine. My wife loves to make lattes. So we always start our day with
I love you a latte.
Oh God, it's the best. And it's not even a caffeine thing. It's a ritual thing for us. Like we don't need it to start our day physically. It's the time to make something beautiful and to share it with each other. And so we make our lattes, and then we take the dogs on a walk, and we talk about ideas or whatever it is that's going on in our mind.
So
and then we
fun.
come back and we're covered in sweat because we live in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah, it's hot.
And
I'm in South Florida, super
you get
hot,
it.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
But
get
I
it.
get the breeze by the ocean, you know, kind of. I don't think are you getting that up there? Like,
Well, we're by the
I don't know what
ocean
Charleston.
too. Yeah, we're 10 minutes away. Well, actually, I'm 2 minutes away from the water, but 10 minutes away from open ocein.
Got it.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
Yeah. It just gets sticky. No, just sticky. Just
Really
sticky.
does not help. But yeah, that's our morning ritual. And then from there, I'm a more of a morning mover. I like to get my practice, whatever I'm going to do in. If I don't do something before 2:00, it's probably not going to happen. Is basically how it goes for me. Because come dinner time, I'm done. Like, I don't want to work. I don't want to think. I want to eat. I want to chill. I want to, watch our Netflix shows. Like, game over when it's dinner time.
Yeah. Let's do that, let's do that. So you've transitioned yourself from, starting teaching, traveling, doing the whole thing, yoga journal, wanderlust, all the yoga celebrity thing. Let's just throw that word out there, all the things and all the, traveling around, you did the traveling teacher thing. Like you did it, like you lived it, getting in the planes, flying around, coming back home. Now you're more grounded in Charleston. So what are you working on now? Like, what are you doing?
Well, I still travel. Yeah, I was just in Raleigh over the weekend, and I just cut way back on the amount of traveling that I'm doing. And I fly out to Los Angeles a couple times a year to create content for Glow. But I am actually writing. I've written 2 books, but I am working on my first novel. And
congratulations.
20,000 words in, and yeah, It's happening. It's I'm pretty pumped. It's a story that I've been outlining for the past year. It's really something I've wanted to do for the past 10 years. And so that's my ritual is I have to write 500 words a day unless obviously something comes up and I just can't get to it. And
like you got to get on the Yogi Show.
Exactly.
Right. There it is. What emoji are you putting after that? What emoji?
I will go for, let's see, the thumb and forefinger under the chin look.
That's a classic.
Okay,
I like
all right.
That's another favorite. But yeah, so that's really where I'm putting all of my extra work energy right now is writing this story, and it's great because it turns out writing a story is very much like reading a story. It's just Neil Gaiman is my favorite fictional author, and he put it beautifully where he said, writing fiction is like driving in the fog with one headlight. It's very difficult to see very far in front of you, and then every now and then the mists part and you can see clearly. And so it's great. It's the book I'm writing is kind of like someone's reading it to me, and it's been a pretty magical experience.
That is magical. I like that quote from him. We'll put that in the show notes. Put that author
Neil
in the show
Gaiman
notes.
for life.
For life. So we actually go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
Oh, and yeah, your Aim True book. I was looking over that.
That was baby number 2. And this one will be nothing like that at all. And I will definitely, at some point in my life, I would like to do my last book, Aim True, was half cookbook, and it is in me to create a full cookbook as well. I have no idea when that's going to come to be, but food is just such a massive part. So that will, once I get all this fiction writing out of me, I'll go back to measurements and food and all that good stuff.
I love seeing the recipes and the things you cook up in the kitchen with Kate on Instagram story. Like so fun, like so inspiring. And I'm like, but Kathryn, I have 3 kids. Like, how in the fuck am I going to cook any of that?
You're not, dude. You're not. Just call it what it is.
Like, Kathryn, I just can't. Like, I really want to eat my phone, but I can't actually eat any food. You
should make my SpaghettiOs. I have a SpaghettiOs recipe in Aim True, and the kiddos will love that.
Okay, we're gonna link the Aim True SpaghettiO recipe in the show notes. My friends, head back to the site, check it out, and I'm definitely gonna make it for my kids, and then we'll post it on the Yogi Show podcast on the story.
I will be waiting.
We're gonna make that happen. We're gonna make that happen. Well, congratulations.
And everyone listening, if you're gonna read Kathryn's stuff or listen to her podcast, you're gonna get hungry.
Yeah, you're just gonna get hungry.
You're gonna get hungry. So
did you
maybe eat before?
There was a picture I saw of you I don't know if it was a yoga journal cover or not. It's like in splits in like a, I don't know, tutu or something. And like you're eating an ice cream cone. Like, was that yoga journal? Was that the cover?
That was it wasn't the cover, but it was from the same photo shoot.
Same shoot. I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is amazing. Like goals, you know,
like ice cream in a tutu and combat boots. It pretty much sums up my life.
Yeah. Like goals. Like how awesome is that? Like your photo shoots are so fun. You are so fun. You know, all the things you're doing are amazing. I'm sure the novel's going to be incredible. Can't wait to check that out. Really appreciate you taking the time to connect with us, laugh with us, and the insight that you've shared with all of the listeners about aspiring teachers, new teachers, you know, being out in the mix, you know, and sharing your authentic message, aiming true, like really sharing what's from your heart and sharing your message and shining your light. That's the key. You know, being you is the key. Not showing up as somebody else, like showing up as yourself, because the world needs what the unique gift that you have and not anybody else's. They'll get it from the other person. They need what you have.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, gentlemen. It's been a lovely, lovely chat.
It's been so fun. Last question I have for you. So 5 years from now, like, where are you and what are you doing?
Oh, you know, probably on a cruise ship with my billions of dollars from my series of books that has taken over the world. Yeah, you guys. That's what it's about. Me and Jay-Z are going to be kicking it.
Big pimpin'. Yeah. I absolutely love it. Kathryn, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time twice, because last week didn't happen.
Hey.
So thanks for taking the time again.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, it is all good. Brian, I love you, man. Kathryn, I love you, girl.
Love you guys.
are awesome.
Love you both. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on
and checking out with us. And we'll link everything in the show notes back on the site. So check out where Kathryn's at, what she's doing, how to find her, how to listen to her podcast, free cookies. But wait, one more question. Why are there no actual free cookies at your on site? Like why don't you have the free cookies when they come to record with you? I heard that with Sean Korn. Like where are the free cookies at, Kathryn?
She will never get over that. Oh, she loves that. She's milking that. She is not dairy milking that so hard. Yeah.
So fun. Get those cookies, girl. Okay. We appreciate you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, Kathryn.
Thank you.
Namaste, my friends.
Namaste. Thank you so much for listening to the Yogi Show podcast. Tell your friends about the podcast. If you haven't told your friends, tell your friends. Share the podcast. Follow us. If you want the show notes, go to theyogishow.com. We put all the show notes, all the links, everything for you right there. And the Yogi Show has music from DJ Taz Rashid Momentology, their new album, Seeker. The song on the Yogi Show today was called Rolling. So check them out. We appreciate you. And remember, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Namaste.